The New York Islanders did it. They won their fifth straight game, a convincing 5-2 win over the Colorado Avalanche. We'll break down how the Islanders did it and how the two new defensemen played in their first and second game, respectively, with the Islanders. All that and more on today's Locked On Islanders podcast.
You're Locked On Islanders, your daily podcast on the New York Islanders. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome, everybody, to the Wednesday edition of the Locked On Islanders podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Don't forget to subscribe on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts so you never miss an episode. I'm Gil Martin. I've been covering the Islanders for almost 2 decades and been watching the team since their inception. And I wrote the book Ice Wars, which covers a detailed history of the Islanders' rivalry with the New York Rangers. The Islanders did it. 5 wins in a row, a 5-2 win over the Colorado Avalanche. And I got to say, this was a solid and convincing win. And here is one of the differences between the Islanders and the Avalanche, okay? You look at the Avalanche and their top 3 or 4 forwards, maybe now 4 or 5 after the trade. But, they're very top-heavy when it comes to their forwards. They have some elite guys and then a lot of average guys. The Islanders don't have elite guys, but they have a lot of good players, but more depth, at least now, the way this lineup is put together. And I think that it is impressive the way this team played solid team defense in this game. And Ilya Sorokin, hats off. He was strong. 30 saves in the 32 shots he faced. But again, it's where those shots came from and how you make some big saves at the right time. And to his credit, Sorokin did indeed come up big. How about Simon Holmstrom? A 3-point night for Holmstrom, 2 goals and an assist. And he absolutely played a really, really strong game all the way around. And the penalty kill, which has been a problem for the Islanders all year long, it actually got the job done. The Islanders were shorthanded twice in this game and did not give up a goal. Now, the Islanders did get fortunate. An apparent tying goal by the Avalanche was wiped out on a challenge. It was a very close play. I don't know if I would have overturned the goal. It ended up being a judgment call, but wow. Smart gamble by Patrick Roy to challenge it. He wins the challenge. The Islanders at the time were up 2-1. It would have been 2-2, and had the goal counted, the Avalanche would have had a power play. So again, just a really good job there of winning a challenge, which doesn't happen too often for the Islanders, and being able to hold on to the lead. And then in the third period, when the Islanders were ahead, up 3-2, they did a good job of keeping the Avalanche on the perimeter and not letting them make big plays. I do have to say this. The goal by Arturi Letkinen, when he was actually prone on the ice and lifted the puck over Ilya Sorokin, there was a defensive breakdown on that play. I think it was Isaiah George who was most responsible for it. But overall, you just tip your hat. That was just a pretty goal. I don't think there was anything much Sorokin could have done about it. And these guys, are so skilled, and that was just a skilled goal. But talking about skilled goals, Bo Horvat's goal was a goal scorer's goal. One of Simon Holmstrom's goals, not the empty netter, but the other one where he literally did a 180, turned around, had a little time and space, and lifted the puck past Mackenzie Blackwood. That was a goal scorer's goal, and not the kind of thing you expect from Simon Holmstrom. Again, and I've said this before, everydayers, you know, Simon Holmstrom, I think the skill is there for him to give you 20 to 25 goals a season. He needs the confidence to be there. It's not there yet, but it's growing, and that is an encouraging sign. And Anders Lee with another 2-point night. Lee, with a goal and an assist, continues to play well, and he is leading the Islanders in goals scored. So just an overall team effort for the New York Islanders, and they are getting it done. Let's be frank here. They are getting it done with defense, because in the 5-game winning streak, the Islanders have given up 1, 1, 1, 2, and 2 goals. So 7 goals allowed in 5 games. You do that, even with a team that does struggle to score at times, like the Islanders. They entered this game 30th in the league in goals scored. Now, that number will go up after scoring 5 against the Avs. But you give up 2 goals or fewer, you should win more than half your games. And the Islanders did it. And the way they've played defense has been the biggest reason for the team's success. And I just have to give credit. Shout out, by the way, to Alexander Romanov. He had a big goal, a goal that helped increase the lead, and he had 5 shots on goal, 6 hits, 4 block shots, and he led all Islanders with 25 minutes and 12 seconds of ice time. And, you know, if we're doing hero and GOAT of the game, I'm going to be very specific on the GOAT. And as far as the hero is concerned, it's going to be a tie, and I'm going to break it down. GOAT of the game is that very bad change that the Islanders made that allowed Jack Drury to score the goal that pulled the Avs to within 3-2 with a little more than 5 minutes left. To me, you know, that was just a sloppy play. And, you know, that change, that bad judgment by the players on the ice, to me, is where we get the GOAT of the game. Now, hero of the game. I got 3 guys. I could probably go with 4 or 5, but I'm going to limit it to 3. Simon Holmstrom, for his 3-point night, definitely has to be one of the 3. Ilya Sorokin for the 30 saves, many of them spectacular. And look, let's face it, the Avalanche play a very skilled, very entertaining brand of hockey. Their passing was really, really crisp at times, but Sorokin was able to prevent them from turning those pretty passes into goals. And I give him a lot of credit. He had to play well for the Islanders to win this game, and he did. And then, to me, Alexander Romanov has to get one of my heroes of the game. He had 6 hits, as I mentioned, including an open ice hit on McKinnon, a couple of really good hits in front of the goal where, you know, clean, no penalties, but he really played well. He had the goal. He sacrificed his body with the 4 shots, 4 blocks, 5 shots on goal, a +1. I could add to this list. I could, you know, I'd have to mention Anders Lee. I'd have to mention, you know, Bo Horvat had a solid game. But overall, those are my three heroes of the game. And you know what? I'll say this. When you have a tough choice on the hero of the game, where there's three guys that you could put in there, that's a good problem to have. And I'm happy to see that the Islanders do have that problem right now after this big 5-2 win. They are now 4 points out of a playoff spot. Not going to be easy, but at least right now they're making that run. They make a run at every year at some point. The key is to sustain it, because let's face this fact. Even just 4 points back with 5 or 6 teams that you still need to pass, you're going to have to get 60% of the available points or more in order to get one of those playoff spots. And you have to hope that none of the other teams you're fighting also play similarly well. So it's not easy. It's a tough climb, but this team, if they can play consistently the way they've played over the last 5 games, and that's a tall order because this team over the last 4 or 5 years has rarely played well consistently. They get their hot streaks and then they'll follow it up. In the past, they'll go 7-0-2 and then they'll go 1-5 and 3 in the next 9. And you can't have that. You can't cancel out the winning streaks with a slump. So one game at a time, a big game coming up against the Flyers on Thursday, and we'll see how that goes. Hey, the Islanders have 2 new players out there. How did they fare? We're going to talk about that. Plus, we'll have our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders, and an easy one for our Islanders birthday of the day, a player who was the first ever draft pick in New York Islanders history. Let's see if you can guess who that is. We've got all that and more coming up on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by your friends at FanDuel. Super Bowl 59 is here. 1 game, 2 teams, endless possibilities, and there's no better way to make every play more exciting than with FanDuel Sportsbook. Whether it's predicting the first touchdown, calling the MVP, or even betting on the coin toss, FanDuel makes it easy to get in on all the action. With live betting all game long, you could adjust your bets as the game unfolds and feel the thrill from kickoff to the final whistle. The live betting feature lets you stay involved no matter what happens on the field, and the app is super easy to navigate. Plus, knowing that you could place a $5 bet and potentially win $200 in bonus bets for the Super Bowl, that's the icing on the cake. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Just bet $5, and if you win, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com. Bet with FanDuel, official partner of Super Bowl 59. So let's take a look at the 2 newest Islanders and how they fared. First of all, both of them had assists in this game. And of course, we're talking about Tony DeAngelo and Scott Perunovich. Here's a general assessment of what they've done. And again, DeAngelo's played, 2 games as an Islander. Perunovich, this was his Islanders debut. But here's what I think is their big contribution so far. Both of these players are a little more offensive minded, and that is something the Islanders have needed for a long time. And they are smarter with the puck, both in their own zone and I think in the offensive zone, than Noah Dobson is. Everydayers, you've heard me mention on a number of occasions that Dobson doesn't necessarily have great vision, or if he does, he doesn't always implement that vision. And the one thing about Tony DeAngelo and Scott Perunovich, they skate well, they pass well, and they're not as big, at least in the initial impression. They're not as big of a defensive liability as Noah Dobson is when he's struggling, and he has struggled a lot lately. So I like what I've seen. DeAngelo had an assist. He was a +2. He had 2 hits, 2 block shots, a takeaway, and a giveaway. Played a little under 19 minutes. That was Perunovich. DeAngelo had the assist. He had 2 hits, 2 block shots, 1 takeaway, 1 giveaway, played 22-11. And he didn't have a shot on goal, but Perunovich had 2. And again, you see these guys just fitting in, keeping it simple, and playing well. And that is what we need to see. You've heard me, everydayers, you've heard me talk about when things aren't going well, keep it simple. The KISS theory, keep it simple, stupid. Well, the Islanders, 2 new defensemen so far, are doing just that. They're doing the little simple things right. Now, again, this is a very small sample size. You can't just sit here and say, oh, yeah, these guys have solved the problems. Your first couple of games, you have more adrenaline. It's exciting. You're trying to prove yourself to your teammates. I get it. You can play really well for the first 2, 3, 4 games, and then you start to settle back down to the mean. So I'm happy with what I've seen from both of these players. I think they add something to the mix that was lacking on the Islanders roster before these 2 guys were added. And look, we know the potential pitfalls of both of these guys, okay? DeAngelo has had a reputation of not always being the best teammate. You give him a clean slate, he comes to the island. Hopefully, he remains a solid teammate and continues to play well. I think his skills are a lot less questioned than his off-ice behavior and his locker room behavior. If he can keep himself clean and do the right thing, I think he will help this hockey team. And as for Perunovich, his big issue seems to have been his size. And, sometimes smaller defensemen will struggle one-on-one, especially in the defensive zone. It is, if you're 5'10", 180 pounds, and that's roughly what Perunovich is, and you've got to try to defend a guy who is 4, 5, 6 inches taller than you and weighs 30 pounds more than you do, it isn't easy. It is very difficult to do that sometimes. Try moving a big guy out from in front of the net when he outweighs you by 25, 30 pounds. It's a challenge. So we have to see how this unfolds. But so far, so good as far as these 2 acquisitions are concerned. And that is encouraging for the New York Islanders as they continue to fight for playoff position. Have to mention this while we're at it. The New York Islanders Patrick Roy reinserted Maxim Siplikov into the lineup. Pierre Engvall was a healthy scratch. Matt Martin was a healthy scratch. And then Dennis Cholowski was the 7th defenseman. But where did Siplikov play? He played on the 4th line with Mark Gatcomb and Kyle McLean. And I'll tell you something. Siplikov, prior to all these injuries and prior to Gatcomb being called up, Siplikov was one of the more physical guys on the Islanders. He was one of the guys who was, hitting consistently. And every day, as you'll recall, we've talked about how Gatcomb is a consistent hitter. Siplikov is second on the team in hits behind Casey Cizikas, and Zeke has played 4 more games. But you put Siplikov and Gatcomb on a line, and then you could throw in Kyle McLean, who, hits occasionally, has 60 hits right now in 48 games. that is a more physical line and a more consistently physical line. It gives you a little energy. It gives you a boost from that fourth line. And even if they're not scoring, look, the thing about the identity line in their heyday is they didn't necessarily score a lot of goals, but they were capable at any time of changing the momentum of a game by their physicality, their forecheck, the way they played. This year, up until recently, the fourth line was contributing almost nothing offensively, and they weren't giving you that physicality. Siplikov, Gatcom, and McLean can give you that physicality and maybe even a little bit of offense. So I think that was a solid move by Patrick Roy. And look, I know Patrick Roy. He's not keeping any line combination together for too long. That's just not his MO. But at the same time, it's okay. Let's let these guys play their game and play well as long as they can, and we'll see where it goes from there. But right now, that's an effective fourth line. We have got more to get to on today's show. We've got our weekly farm report on all things Bridgeport Islanders, plus our Islanders birthday of the day. All that and more still to come on today's Locked On Islanders podcast. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. I'll tell you, attending NFL playoff games is an unforgettable experience that brings fans together. I remember the excitement and energy of a playoff game I attended last year, and I'm looking forward to making new memories this season. Well, Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for events even easier. It filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. I recently used Game Time Picks to find tickets for an NFL playoff game. Browsing through the deals was simple, and I found a great value for all kinds of seats around the venue. The super deal was especially impressive, offering the best value for the event, and the app's feature like seat views before you buy and all-in pricing with no surprise fees at checkout made the experience smooth and reliable. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest prices guaranteed. Thank you for making Locked On Islanders your first listen today. For your second listen, find Locked On Fantasy Hockey. Become a fantasy hockey expert and get the edge over your league mates with daily tips from our hosts, Steele and Flip. Find Locked On Fantasy Hockey on YouTube or wherever you listen to podcasts. It's part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Time for our weekly farm report. We do this every Wednesday. It is time to discuss all things Bridgeport Islanders, and the Islanders played 3 games over the last week since we did our last farm report. And the first one last Wednesday did not go well. Islanders lost to the Utica Comets 7-1. Liam Foudy scored a goal in his 3rd straight game, but Jack Malone had a hat trick. In fact, a natural hat trick for Utica, and Henrik Tikkanen just had a rough game, giving a goal just 40 seconds in, and it was kind of all downhill from there for Bridgeport. But then they bounced back with their next game, a 5-2 win over the Syracuse Crunch on Friday. Chris Terry had 3 points in the game. Jakub Skarek, now with the big club, he tied his career high, making 43 saves. Terry had 2 goals and an assist. William Dufour and Gamel Smith also with goals. And Liam Foudy also scoring. So he now had a goal in 4 straight games. Tice Thompson, Samuel Bolduc, each with 2 helpers. So that was a solid win. But the next night, the Islanders go up against the Lehigh Valley Phantoms and fall by a score of 2-1. Chris Terry got his 12th goal, his 6th with the extra attacker. And but that was all that the Islanders were able to manage in this game. Tice Thompson and Sam Bolduc each had assists, so they each have points in, 5 games for Bolduc, 4 for Thompson. But the road trip ends with a 2-2 record, and it's a 1-win, 2-loss week for the Bridgeport Islanders. Chris Terry still leading the team in points with 36, 12 goals, 24 assists. Liam Foudy now is next with 28 points, 15 of those goals. Brian Pinault leading the team with 17 goals. Alex Jeffries, 8 goals, 23 points in 35 games. And now Samuel Bolduc up to 19 points in 38 games. That's 4 goals and 15 assists. As for Matthew Maggio, he's only played 36 games, 3 goals, 12 points. William Dufour, 32 games, 6 goals, 11 points. Both of those guys still not being all that productive for Bridgeport. And again, with the goaltending situation, Jakub Skarek, 3.22 goals against average, an 895 save percentage, and a 5.11-1 record. But the Islanders overall still struggling defensively in front of their goaltenders. And meanwhile, you look at the standings, 41 games in, there's 31 games left on the schedule. The Islanders, Bridgeport, 10-27-4. They are 15 points behind the Hartford Wolfpack, who are now in 7th place. So Bridgeport, let's just say as of right now, they have the worst record in the AHL and continue to struggle. This schedule coming up, there's a game tonight at home against Lehigh Valley. That'll be a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. And then the weekend series, Friday and Saturday, at the Hershey Bears. So both of those games are a 7 o'clock Eastern time start. You can see all these games on AHL TV, or if you want to see some of the Islanders prospects today before they reach the island, head on over to Bridgeport and pick up some tickets for the game. But, a tough season for the Bridgeport Islanders. And right now, with all the injuries and everything that's going on, it's pretty tough for them. And there is just a lack of consistency on Bridgeport. All right, time for our Islanders birthday of the day. And today is the 73rd birthday of former Islanders forward Billy Harris, the Toronto native, first pick ever by the New York Islanders, first overall pick in the 1972 NHL draft. Had a 57-goal, 129-point season for the Toronto Marlboros of the OHA in his last year in junior. Had 28 goals and 50 points for the Islanders in their first season. Added his best season with the Islanders, 32 goals and 70 points in 1976-77. Billy Harris stayed with the Islanders through the late part of the 79-80 season. He was traded to the LA Kings in the deal that brought Butch Goring to the island. So, unfortunately for Billy Harris, while he was a big part of the Islanders' playoff runs in the mid to late 70s, he missed out on any of the Islanders' Stanley Cups. He played for LA, then Toronto, then LA again. His career ended after the 1983-84 season, had 231 career goals and 558 career points in 897 NHL games. Had 19 goals, 38 points in 71 playoff games. All but 12 of those were with the Islanders. Looking back at one of his best games as an Islander, October 20th, 1979, cue up Brass Bonanza as the Hartford Whalers invade the Nassau Coliseum. And the goalie for the Whalers is John Cheech Garrett, while Glenn Chico Resch is in goal for the Islanders. And just 4.5 minutes into the game, our Islanders' birthday of the day, Billy Harris gets the Islanders on the board first. Mike Kazicki and Jean Potvin with the assists. Then, with a little more than a minute left in the period, with Gordy Roberts off for holding, Billy Harris, our Islanders' birthday of the day, scores on the power play. Bob Lorimer and John Tonelli with the assists. And in the second period, just a minute and a half in, Harris completes a natural hat trick. Stefan Pearson and Dave Langevin with the assists. Islanders go on to beat the Whalers by a score of 6-1. 23 saves for Chico Resch. For Billy Harris, our Islanders' birthday of the day, he had 3 goals. He was a +2. He had the game-winning goal, and he had 4 shots on goal, which tied him for the team lead with Anders Kaller and Bob Lorimer. Billy Harris, the first ever pick by the New York Islanders, is our Islanders' birthday of the day. I want to thank everyone who makes Locked On Islanders your first listen every day. Every day as we're back tomorrow, we'll have a full preview of the Islanders game against the Philadelphia Flyers, and that is going to be a vital game. And don't forget, we'll see if the Flyers do continue their beef with Maxim Siplikov. I am confident that there will be some extracurricular activities, but we'll preview all of that on tomorrow's show. If you have a question, a comment, maybe a topic you'd like us to discuss on a future episode, email us at lockedonislanders@gmail.com. If you leave your first name and where you're from, we're happy to mention you on the show when we discuss whatever's on your mind. You could follow the show on X at Locked On Isles, and you could follow me, Gil Martin, on X at Ice Wars, NYR, VSNYI. We'll keep you up to date on all things Islanders all year long, and I am live tweeting during nearly every Islanders home and road game. So join me for some instant insight and analysis. Until tomorrow, have a great day, everybody. Stay safe, and of course, let's go Islanders.